Caroline leaves out.
Start anytime.
Okay. 702 High Street. The information I gathered on this was from talking to Del Hutch Watkins Livingston, who was raised in the house. And Del Hutch believes the house was built in 1900 to 1902, somewhere in that range, and that the man who built it for his wife, but she died and then he sold it. And her grandfather bought it, and that was Joel Watkins, who owned the Planter's Warehouse. Joel Watkins family had lived on a farm he had on the Prince Edward, Appomattox line. And the farm was named Scotland, and it was next to Featherfen. Joel Watkins, she said, opened one of the first public schools in Appomattox so that his children would have an education, and he opened it to all the children in the area, black or white, to get them through elementary school. When it was time for his children to go to high school, they moved into the Farmville and bought 702 High Street. Boss Joe is what they called him, and he owned the Planter's Tobacco Warehouse. And he had 3 children. I believe it was Joe Red and John Marshall Watkins, which was Del Hutch's father, and Catherine Watkins, who was Kitty Watkins and was my kindergarten teacher, and many Farmville students went through her classes. Let's see. Del Hutch said one of her vivid memories and thoughts about the house was that her grandfather always spread tobacco scraps from the warehouse on the lawn to kill the bugs. And Del Hutch remembers asking him that if it kills the bugs, why are people chewing and smoking it? So I thought that was interesting, and that was one of her vivid memories. Okay?
And Caroline informed me that house had 14 bedrooms, and every room had a fireplace. And in the back, Kitty Watkins had a nursery school. And before she started teaching kindergarten at Prince Edward Academy, she ran a private nursery school there.
And Del Watkins, Del Hutch's mother, continued the nursery school, and the nursery school Del Hutch didn't know if it was built as a summer kitchen or as a servant's house, but it had a fireplace, 2 rooms, fireplace in between, and some other section. I can't remember. I only remember being there in nursery school. So,
is that building still there?
yes, and Nancy, she sold the nursery school business to Nancy Noel, who ran it for a number of years before she moved on to a regular classroom. So, that should be it.
Okay. So who were the owners? You want to list them out?
The owners, we're not sure. Joel,
who are the known ones?
Joel Watkins, and then I don't know whether John Marshall Watkins, Del Hutch's father, or her Aunt Kitty, or it stayed in the estate, but they both lived there. At this time, I read it was like 4 apartments plus the nursery school building. And each, she said, the ceilings were 10 to 12 feet high, and it was very large. I think it was close to 5,000 square feet. So we were very interested, and would love if anybody ever finds out who built it in the 1900s, because I'd like to know whether he thought he was going to run a rooming house or what he was doing to have 14 bedrooms. I did ask Del Hutch how many children her grandfather had to be buying a house with 14 bedrooms. So, but he only had 4, so he wasn't trying to equip them all.
But where's Dale Hutch and Sally C today?
Sally C's in Winston-Salem, and she worked for the museums, Mazda, and some of the museums down there. And Dale Hutch lives in Richmond, in Southside, in an old house she has renovated, and she does tours and trips for the Virginia Museum. Mm-hmm.
And is that the house that Willie lived in? No, it's
No,
next
that's
house.
not.
Okay.
That's not that. So, and we don't have the history of who bought the house and stayed in it since that time.
Ain't no problem. But we'll cut it off right there. And, got too many computers here. Okay, the Watkins home at 702. So what the data we have is,
702 High Street. The information I gathered on this was from talking to Dale Hutch, Watkins, who was raised in the house. And Dale Hutch believes the house was built in 1900 to 1902, somewhere in that range. And the man who built it for his wife, but she died and then he sold it. And her grandfather bought it, and that was Joel Watkins, who was owned Planter's Warehouse. Joel Watkins they had his family that lived on a farm he had on the Buckingham, Prince Edward, Buckingham, Appomattox line. The farm was in Scotland, and it was next to Featherhead. Joel Watkins, she said, opened the first public schools in Appomattox so that his children would have an education, and he opened it to all the children in the area, black or white, to get them through elementary school. When it was time for his children to go to high school, they moved into the Farmville and bought 702 High Street. Lost Joe is what they called him, and he was owned the Planter's back warehouse. And he had 3 children. I believe it was Joe Red and John Marshall Watkins, which was Dale Hutch's father, and Catherine Watkins, who was Kitty Watkins and was my kindergarten teacher, and many homeless students went through her classes. Dale Hutch said one of her living memories and thoughts about the house was that her grandmother always spread tobacco scraps from the warehouse on the lawn to kill the bugs. And Dale Hutch remembers asking him that if it kills the bugs, why are people chewing and I thought that was interesting, and that was one of her living memories. Okay? And Carolyn informed me that that house had 14 bedrooms, and every room had a fireplace. And in the back, Kitty Watkins had a nursery school. But of course, she started teaching kindergarten, and she had until she got to be in a private nursery school there. And Dale Hutch's mother continued the nursery school, and the nursery school was, Dale Hutch didn't know if it was built as a summer kitchen or as a servant's house, but it had a fireplace, 2 rooms, fireplace in between, and some other section, I can't remember. I don't remember reading there in nursery school. So, yes, and then
Does anybody know who lives there now?
With apartments.
They have apartments there for students, and there is an elderly lady. I say elderly, I'm also elderly, but Mrs. Motley, and she's been there for about 20 years. And other students just come and go.
So it's a rental today.
Yes.
Ginger Amos owns it.
Ginger Amos is the oldest.
Ginger does
South
it.
of Omaha.
Is
That is south of Omaha.
Gladys Motley. Okay,
She
yes.
was a seven.
Okay, I know Gladys. Okay, yes. Okay, and your mom ran the nursery school there?
She did.
You remember that?
I do. I remember it well.
Okay. So everything's tied together in this town.
Jenny,
Yes.
Dell Hutch told me that she and Bob were famous for sneaking out the window of the nursery school while our mother was teaching. Doing what they wanted to do. They didn't do that, did they, Scotty?
No, we were well behaved.
And Del Hutch's mother was my first grade teacher.
That's right.
Yeah, I had
Probably
2 or 3 Miss Watkins while I was in school.
One of my traumas of kindergarten and first grade is I had always called them Kitty and Big Dell.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they had to be Miss Watkins.
Yeah.
And that was a shock to a first school time school person.
We, Kay and Caroline and I met, I guess, at least 4 times. And we spent 3 or 4 hours every time we met, and a lot of stories were told, but we couldn't repeat them in this break.
I said, if we look crazy, it was your fault, because you had to cut that stuff.
I cut out everything but one thing. You can guess what that was.
Yeah.
Adele Watkins was the organist at Farmville Presbyterian Church. I can't tell you the years, but we've been members since '66. I think it was in the '70s, maybe, somewhere along there. Adele.
Yeah, she would have been. And Sally C. she's retired from the museum, but she is still doing a music program in one of the big churches in Winston-Salem.
Okay. I'll move on and tell you what else we found here. There's a picture, as far as we know, of Joel Watkins. And then there was a Joel Jr. after that, which we'll get to. But he owned this, and this. He might not have been sole owner of the real estate, but he operated the Planter's Warehouse with, from time to time, I did a program on all the tobacco warehouses some years ago, and from year to year, it looked like ownerships shifted. They were buying each other out, and people were leaving the business. But we know Joel ran this particular Planter's Warehouse, and then he had a son named Joel Jr. along with 2 other sons, and this particular son was named Joe Red because he had red hair.
Oh, sorry.
And Joe Red not only took over the tobacco warehouse from his father, but he also ran, in this part of the building, he ran Joel Watkins Appliance Company. I guess that's what he called it, but do you remember that, Bill? Yeah, he sold appliances along in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when everybody was getting electricity in town. Even the Hub department store sold appliances. Everybody, no matter what kind of business you had, you took on the sideline of appliances, it looked like. So Mr. Watkins had an appliance business there for many years. Joe Red Jr., Joel Watkins Jr. was married to Catherine Armstrong Watkins. And where did, her house was the house that Chuck Daddy lives in? I think that's what Kay told us. So that was a connection to First Avenue. But Joe Red, let's see, his sister was Adele H. Watkins, who was Dale Hutch and Sally C's mother.
Yes.
And then they were brothers, John Marshall Watkins and William Jones Watkins.
Well, Adele was married to Marshall.
Yes, yes, that's right. The brothers were these two men. And family of Joel Watkins would have moved to High Street. We tried to figure it out. They came to Farmville. We don't know who the original owner was at that house, but it was sold to Joel Watkins when his children got old enough to
Needed to go to high school.
to go to high school. So I looked at their obituaries, figured out when they were born. I figured they would have started high school around 15 years old or so. So we figured they took over the 702 address about 1915. So it'd be about right.
So the lady ran whatever she ran. The house was built for, had it for about 15, well,
At least 15
13,
years.
12, 15 years.
Yes, and maybe more.
Yeah.
And we assume that Mr. Twelvetrees may have built this house also because he liked to put these things on the roofs. And he always had a lot of fancy work, like around that top of the porch, on the ends of the houses. And we also know that he built the house behind this house, facing Oak Street. And we know Mr. Twelvetrees also built the next block over, which was that schoolhouse on Oak Street. So generally, when a contractor kind of got in one neighborhood, it wasn't unusual for him to build all around. So we think Mr. Twelvetrees might have built this property. And we did everything we could do to find out who originally lived there, but
We didn't go drag out those books at the courthouse.
until we get a clue, we don't really know. But let's see, there's another picture of it. Another picture of it. This picture kind of shows the back part there where it's large. This probably is the 1985 picture from the group back there in the kitchen. And another good picture of the back of the house. It almost, when I originally started looking about this house, I thought they added another house to the back of this house. But it's not. It looks like it was all built at one time. 14 bedrooms, 10 to 12 foot ceilings, lots of fireplaces, two-story home, and a partial basement back in the back. They said. I don't know if the basement extends upward or not. I pulled this from the 1910 or the 1918 town map, and that is how we know that it probably wasn't added on to it. It looked like it was all built at one time. The reason I highlighted this house and this lot was compared to the other houses we're looking at tonight, this one is certainly the largest of them all. And then I compared it to the alumni house, which we looked at last month. And looking at the alumni house, when you go by that, the alumni house, it's like looking at the White House or a mansion. But when you look at the square footage of that house and this house, I'd say both of them have approximately 5,000 square feet. But when you ride by this house, it doesn't really look any bigger than the rest of them in the neighborhood. But I just wanted to point that out. I don't know why this one looks so much bigger from the street, but there it does. Okay, again, just looking at the footprint of the two houses there. This is one picture I found. I found several pictures of this building. It has nothing really to do with the houses, but it appears in a lot of the pictures. And as you can see, it's built right up on the sidewalk. And we have not been able to figure out what its purpose was. If I don't guess who that is?
I would guess it might have been, had a stove in there at some point, and that was a
There's a
kitchen.
blue pipe right
And
there.
maybe some servant lived back there?
And this is out right up on the
Could have been
sidewalk.
a summer kitchen and servant property.
But it is strange that it's built out on High Street and not behind or beside the house. But we don't know, so I was hoping maybe somebody might figure it out, even if it's somebody who sees it on YouTube. But anyway, there's a blue pipe, and there's a 702 house in the background, so we can pretty much figure that this house was probably sitting in front of 704, it looks like. Who do we have here, Amy? Do you happen to guess? Or anybody in the family?
The first one, I think, was Scrub Newell.
The baby.
Yeah.
And maybe this is James Luckenberg. I think so, and that would be his wife. And these people would be the visitors from New York, probably. Because the books talks about visitors on that page from New York. So this would be Mr. and Mrs. James Luckenberg, who we'll get to in a moment. But there in the background, the reason I put this in is there's another picture of that little shed right up on the street. And then there it is again. And we know it was way back because there's a horse-drawn buggy coming up the street. And I believe the photo album dates most of these pictures to 1921 to 1923. Here's a picture again of 702 in the background. And I pulled this from the Bug family photo album, and this is 704 under construction. And
Looks like it's balloon frame.
yeah,
And 12 Trees is big on balloon framing.
he did or did not.
He did.
Did, okay. We got into that term on the Sears homes. And which one was a big fire danger? The balloon frame?
Oh, I don't know.
There's two different types of construction, and one of them allowed the flames to crawl up the walls, but I forgot which one it was. From the downstairs, upstairs. But we won't get off on that. There's 702 in the background, and I think this is one of the Bug children, little Newell, I think. Does that sound right? We think that that's who it is. He had a nice little toy car there. Yeah, here we go. Henry Newell. Henry be the right name?
Yes.
Okay. And there's 702
He
in the
was an
back.
only child, and I think they must have taken a lot of pictures.
Yes.
Because they showed up a lot.
Yeah,
Mama
they-
King had a good camera.
Yes. Looks like most of the pictures were taken from this 704 yard, looking back that way. But there's just some pictures along that part of the street.
It looks to me like it would have been taken from 706 yard.
It could have been, yes.
Because it
And I think that's where they live. Was that right?
That's
Carol?
what-
Williamsburg was 706, 704 was small.
I think that's right.
Here is